So, the year is turning to 2023, and before that happens, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the weather that occurred in Vermont and northern New York in 2022. We here at the National Weather Service in Burlington have curated this list of impactful weather events that have occurred across our area, ranging from cold wind chills to winter thaws to various snowstorms that created hazardous travel. On top of a few high wind events, we also experienced several severe events this season. Other oddities like a record late first freeze for the Burlington airport also took place this year. And I want to mention an unusually high wind event and some of the characteristics of it that happened in the St. Lawrence Valley. And then, of course, this year has ended with a bang with a heavy, wet snowstorm that caused widespread power outages, and then another potent storm with a variety of weather hazards also causing power outages that occurred 1 week later. So, let's start off with this Arctic outbreak that occurred in January 15th. Some of the coldest air to move in since 2009 came as these blustery northwest winds helped to bring wind chills down to 30 to 35 below for a large portion of New England. So here in this chart we have in blue the actual temperature values that were experienced on that night. You can see temperatures falling near double digits below zero. And combined with the winds, in pink is the area where it shows what the wind chill felt like. And so here you can see where our wind chill advisory criteria and our wind chill warning criteria sets. And you can see that we realized that for at least a few hours here as this very cold air mass moved into the area. The next thing we'll highlight is the Ausable Ice Jam that occurred on February 18th of this year. This ice jam wound up causing the third highest crest on the east branch of the Ausable as a result of a winter thaw and then heavy rains that occurred as well. In addition to the ice jam that occurred over the Ausable River, we had several other rivers in Vermont also experience ice jams during this period. This caused several different impacts, especially in the town of Ausable, with water on roads, flooding cars and businesses, and generally making a mess of the area. The next thing we'll bring up is the February 25th, 2022 snowstorm. While not the highest end event with a widespread 6 to 12 inches, this storm still produced Vermont's largest car pileup, and it came as a result of a very short burst of heavy snow. During the afternoon hours, as people were headed home, snowfall rates of 1 to 2 inches per hour in northern New York and northern Vermont caused travel headaches for the region. In particular, headed up towards Milton, a near 30 car pileup was produced as a result of these heavy snowfall rates. And this is a look at some of the pileup that occurred on that day. Just 2 days later, ideal atmospheric conditions for snow squalls caused a widespread significant snow squall event. But fortunately, strong messaging and coordination with partners helped minimize impacts from this event. But they were sure impressive. Here is a photo here at the Burlington airport as the snow squall was about to hit the airport. You can see the stark contrast between relatively clear skies over the runway to the whiteout conditions about to strike the airport. And next up, we'll mention this high wind event that occurred April 15th. It was quite an unusual event in that it had a deep layer of mixing that promoted these strong wind gusts in the St. Lawrence Valley that toppled trees. Now, what do I mean by a deep layer of mixing? Well, when we talk about atmospheric conditions and whether or not it's favorable for wind gusts, one of the things that we look for is whether air can move easily between the surface and high up, and vice versa. So what we had on this day was conditions that favored movement of air to an unusually high degree. Normally, you can experience any time of year maybe somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 feet of mixing, perhaps. But this day was quite unusual in that we mixed up to 500 millibars, which is somewhere about 16,000 or 17,000 feet up in the atmosphere. So this would be more characteristic of an event maybe in some of the high plains. Quite unusual for this kind of area to experience this kind of level of mixing that produced these strong gusts in the St. Lawrence Valley that toppled several trees in the region. Next up, we'll mention the Addison County tornadoes. A long-track supercell caused 2 tornadoes to touch down in Addison County, Vermont, and this produced minor damage as it did so. Quite unique for this event, this supercell, it didn't produce any lightning with it as these tornadoes developed. Often we use lightning as a method of detecting when there's a sudden increase in lightning. Sometimes that can give us an indication, but this storm didn't even produce any lightning with it, yet produced 2 tornado touchdowns. Next up, we'll talk about these severe storms that occurred in Vermont July 21st. An unseasonably strong area of low pressure formed in an environment of high wind shear and in the middle of a 6-day heat wave across the area. All the ingredients were there to produce severe weather, with several reports of golf ball-sized hail from Irisburg, Vermont, and we received several reports of tree damage across several areas in Vermont. Next up, we'll mention the Champlain Valley wet microburst. This was a significant microburst that descended near Westport and Mariah, New York, likely producing wind gusts near or over 80 miles per hour, which then tracked north over the Champlain Valley. This wet microburst produced tree damage, snapping live, healthy trees on its way up towards the Champlain Valley, had a wide swath of damage extending from the area of impact in Westport and Mariah all the way up into Franklin County, Vermont. A particularly strong wet microburst event for our area. Other notable events, we had a stretch of very quiet weather for some time, and as a result, we wound up seeing the most interesting thing to happen in the middle of October was the fact that the Burlington Airport records its latest first freeze. The Champlain Valley experienced an unusually long growing season this year with a total of 180 days in length. And you can see that over the last 5 years certainly ranks up there for this event. And again, is the latest first freeze here for the Burlington Airport. And next up on the list, heading towards the end of the year and some of our more recent events, we had recently a heavy wet snowstorm that caused numerous power outages December 15th and 16th. While the valley regions got less, higher terrain areas received 12 to 20 inches, with a few areas receiving 2 feet of snow. The heavy wet nature of this snow resulted in roughly 50,000 outages at any one given time. And then the year ends off with a bang with the biggest storm saved for last. We had a powerful storm that produced BTV's second highest wind gust ever recorded at 71 miles per hour, in addition to widespread tree and some property damage as well. Gusty winds caused up to 73,000 power outages at one time. As well, with this event, we had rain and snowmelt that also contributed to minor river floodings and a few road washouts across the region as well. On top of that, behind the event, we had a surprise snow and a flash freeze that resulted in very slick travel for the holiday season. And with that, we managed to make a white Christmas here at Burlington after quite a roller coaster. Between the melt and this snow, we were almost without a white Christmas this year. Some of the coldest air of the year also arrived with this system, with sub-zero wind chills all day on the 24th. And the combination of lake effect and blowing snow and top of these cold conditions wound up producing a freeze-up jam along the Riquette River, for which some people had to be evacuated. On top of this, blizzard conditions were reported near the St. Lawrence River in places such as Ogdensburg and Messina. So quite a storm to end the year off with. And so here's a map of some of the blizzard warnings and the lake effect warnings that we had in effect for this last part of this storm that has continued to impact the area even up until today. And with that, we will see what 2023 has in store. Thanks to everyone for your support, especially those of our spotters, our observers, and all of our partners. Your reports help us to create a more complete picture of the weather that happens here in the North Country. So let's see what happens in 2023 and see what it holds for the North Country. Thanks for listening and hope you enjoyed this overview of the weather in 2022. Have an excellent day and a happy new year.